Welcome everyone to Talking Wizards, where we dive deep into the complexities of the wizarding world, unraveling the threads of history, culture, and the delicate balances that hold our world together. I'm your host, Lily Sterling, and today we have an unexpected guest, a man whose name resonates with both reverence and controversy, Lucius Malfoy.
Good evening, Miss Sterling. I presume it will be a pleasure to be here.
I'll do what I can to make you feel welcome, Mr. Malfoy. Tonight we'll be discussing the topic Redressing Wrongs. In fact, you actually contacted us to be on the podcast and requested the topic yourself. I must say, we were all taken aback when we received your message. Why did you want to be on? And what is the significance of the topic you chose?
Having listened to the discussion you held with my son, Draco, and Mr. Potter, I found myself compelled to address certain points that, in my view, were inadequately represented. I had no problem with them pouring their hearts out to you and to the world about their experiences. However, those were troubled times, Miss Sterling, and troubled times create troubled minds, and troubled minds create troubled thoughts. If you will indulge me, I aim to provide clarity where it is needed.
I see. The topic isn't about redressing wrongs from your past, but about correcting some of the things Draco and Harry said when they were on the show.
Not entirely devoid of reflections upon past actions, you may inquire about whatever suits your fancy, Miss Sterling. But yes, my primary motivation for being here in, what is this called again?
A studio.
For being here in this studio is to clarify things from the conversation you had with my son and Mr. Potter.
Okay, got it. Do you want to begin by dealing with a pressing issue that is at the forefront of your mind, or should I just take it where I think you want to go?
If you do your job properly, Miss Sterling, by the end of this conversation you will have covered the grounds I hope to cover anyway. So let us see how well you do.
You have to understand, Mr. Malfoy, I wasn't expecting to see you sitting in that chair ever. The fact that you are here, however it happened, means that I can't miss the opportunity to ask you some of the questions that have been pulsating in my mind for years. I want to begin by asking you, who came up with the name Death Eaters, and what on earth does it mean?
I can't say I know exactly what it means. It was coined before I was even born by Voldemort. I guess it alludes to a desire to devour death or something along those lines.
I always wondered, what on earth is a Death Eater? What is the symbolism there? What does it signify? Are you saying you can't explain why that name was chosen, or what it actually means?
As I mentioned, Miss Sterling, the name likely alludes to Voldemort's ambition to defy death. Beyond that, it was not a topic of great significance among us, nor one that invited much contemplation. The name served its purpose as a symbol of the Dark Lord's overarching goal, nothing more.
I promise we will deal with the things you came here for, and I completely understand why all of this may seem trivial to you. But I have one more question about this. Do you mind if I throw it your way?
It seems you are determined to do so, Miss Sterling. Proceed as you wish.
Excellent. Honestly, thank you. My final question on this is, when someone hears a name like Death Eaters, what motivates them to want to join a group with that name? Doesn't it ring some loud, piercing alarm bells that may even appear on Richter scales?
Well, I do not have any idea what on earth you mean by a Richter scale. A Muggle reference, I presume. Putting that aside, Miss Sterling, only a superficial individual will stop to pass through a door because there is a sign on it instructing observers not to enter. Someone who has been given the great gift of thought and, of course, the greater gift of courage will enter and explore the space behind. I am not a superficial person, Miss Sterling. I always found the name a bit childish, but I have the capacity to look beyond that.
But a sign?
I know where you are heading, Miss Sterling, and I would urge your listeners to examine my history with the Death Eaters more thoroughly. They will discover that I was subjected to the Imperious Curse during the First Wizarding War, and that I grossly misunderstood Voldemort's true intentions during the Second. My subsequent cooperation with the authorities speaks to my efforts to correct my missteps. As you can see, I'm not languishing in Azkaban, but here, willing to engage in this discussion, a testament to my willingness to address these matters openly.
Is a sign on a door not worth considering ever, Mr. Malfoy? If the sign on the door says, "Do not enter," all who do will be under the effects of the imperious curse. Shouldn't one just try another day or employ some kind of risk-reward strategy and decide to walk away? Death Eaters? Really?
The group initially espoused ideals that resonated with me, principles that I continue to hold dear. I am not one to be deterred by a name or a symbol, Miss Sterling. My decisions were guided by what I perceived as the cause, not by the trappings that adorned it.
What exactly was it that resonated with you?
I initially aligned myself with the concept of pure-blood supremacy, a belief I stand by, though perhaps not in the manner you might expect. However, when the cause devolved into something reprehensible, I ceased my involvement. It was during this period of withdrawal that I was subjected to the imperious curse.
The same thing many others claimed.
Yes, because many of us disagreed with barbarity, Miss Sterling.
Saying that they were under the influence of the imperious curse didn't work for the likes of Igor Karkaroff. He ended up in Azkaban, even though he said he was driven by the curse too. As a result, many believe that you used your power, wealth, and influence to ensure you avoided imprisonment.
If that were the case, Miss Sterling, then I would never have seen the inside of Azkaban. My powerful, well-connected family would have ensured that. However, I did spend time in Azkaban in 1998, after the Second War. The legal system in our world is thorough, and once all evidence was presented, it became clear that my involvement had been exaggerated by those who disagreed with me.
Did you kill anyone, Mr. Malfoy?
What? Really, Miss Sterling, you might have given me some forewarning before posing such a question. Of course not, and the fact that you feel the need to ask suggests that you entertain the notion that I might have.
I'm asking what I think the listeners might want to know, Mr. Malfoy. I hope you understand.
I must admit I do not. There is ample evidence and numerous witnesses who can attest that neither I nor my family engaged in the battle at Hogwarts. If we were, as some suggest, bloodthirsty killers intent on eradicating Muggleborns, why did we refrain from such actions when the opportunity presented itself? It is convenient to accuse someone of murder when the alleged acts occur in the shadows, but when there were others to observe our behavior, we did not do what we are accused of. Neither I nor Narcissa nor Draco have ever taken a life.
I guess we can move on to something Draco said when he was here, which I'm sure is one of the topics you want to address. When he was on, he said that he felt an immense amount of pressure because he was given the task of killing Dumbledore. Based on what I was hearing, he placed some of that blame on you as well as Voldemort, of course. Did you give him the task of killing Dumbledore?
What do you think?
I don't know. I'm asking because I want to hear your side. It seemed to us like Draco was pretty clear that he felt the pressure coming from you, too.
I'm not sure which question I find more offensive, Miss Sterling. The one suggesting I am a mass murderer, or the one implying I am so foolish as to send a mere 16-year-old boy, who hadn't even completed his education, to assassinate a wizard of Dumbledore's caliber. Do you truly believe I would devise such a senseless and doomed-to-fail scheme?
Obviously, Mr. Malfoy, it is implied by those who ask this question that it may not have been your choice. It could be that Voldemort made the decision and you had no choice but to follow along.
Now we are approaching some semblance of truth. Let me make it clear. I did not assign my son a task as impossible as killing Dumbledore. At the time, I was fighting for a cause I believed in, and as we have already established, in my desire to bring about the best possible outcome for my people, I did not go around killing people. I made the mistake of trusting Voldemort.
Trusting him once again.
I hope you allow me to finish, Miss Sterling. It is not befitting for a host to interrupt their guests.
Apologies, go ahead.
As I was saying, I made the mistake of trusting Voldemort, so he sent me on various different kinds of errands, things that we as a group felt were necessary. He was displeased with me, and assigned Draco with the task of killing Dumbledore as a way of reprimanding me for what to him was my incompetence. I would never place such a burden on my son. He is dearer to me than anything else in the entire world.
Why does Draco associate you with causing him the mental and emotional anguish he spoke about? Did you tell him at any point that he doesn't have to do this?
Oh, he did have to go ahead with it. I'm not disputing that. You see, Lily, you grew up in a different time. The world was a different place back then. The entire wizarding world's mindset was different. I knew for sure that he had to try, at least, and the only way of saving my son was for him to do just that. Try. If he didn't try, he would have been branded as disloyal and therefore deemed to be a liability. We couldn't let that happen. It is only for that reason, and that reason only, that I encouraged him just a little to try. Not because I wanted Dumbledore dead, or that I cared more about the Dark Lord than my son or anything of the sort. It is because I loved him and wanted to make sure he remained alive.
Let's pause for a second because I am a little confused. You did say pretty emphatically that you think the idea of sending Draco to kill Dumbledore is silly, but now you say that you encouraged him somewhat to protect him. There seems to be a contradiction here, Mr. Malfoy, or have I misunderstood something?
Let me try to make it clearer for you, but please forgive me if I am unable to make you understand. Not everyone has reached awakenings required to understand even things that are simple to grasp. Firstly, it wasn't my idea to send Draco. It was Voldemort's. I would like to make that clear. I would not have sent him for two reasons. One, because he's my son, pretty self-explanatory, and two, because it was a silly idea considering he didn't stand a chance. Now, the decision had been made regardless of what I or any of us thought. Then, due to options being very limited, as I said, you wouldn't understand, because you didn't live through those times, I decided it was best to encourage him to try, to save him. He interprets that as pressuring him. I was not pressuring him. I repeat, I was saving him.
What was the most likely scenario in your mind? If Draco tried, was he likely to die at the hands of Dumbledore? Or did you have something else planned to ensure he didn't?
We thought long and hard, Narcissa and I. It suffices to say we came to the conclusion that he was less likely to die at the hands of Dumbledore than at the hands of Voldemort.
Because Dumbledore was more merciful in your minds at the time, or because he was more incapable?
Tell me, Miss Sterling, is Dumbledore known for his incapabilities?
I would say no.
Well, the answer to that question can be deciphered by those who feel the need to. All I want is to make it clear that we chose the path that was most likely to lead to Draco growing up, as he has done, getting married, building his own family, sending his own children to Durmstrang or Hogwarts or wherever he pleased. As it turns out, we did the right thing.
I must say it was intriguing and captivating to get your perspective on this. I would love to delve deeper. I do think there are things that still need clarifying, but I am mindful of time, and I know there is another topic you want to cover. So I'd like to give you that opportunity. Why is Draco wrong for opposing pure-blood supremacy?
Thank you. Miss Sterling, pure-blood supremacy has been much maligned, when it is clear that adherence to the philosophy is a necessity. I mean, Draco mentioned that Astoria, may she rest in peace, I should add, used to call it a vile concept. Vile? Really? I would love to know what is vile about wanting to preserve the purity of such a small community. You do know that we number between 15 to 20,000, don't you? In midst of what? 60 million muggles in this country?
The argument from those who don't agree with those views would of course claim that the community is still here, not being worried about blood purity, and most are not, hasn't had the impact that you think it has.
From what we know, of course, I believe that had the mixing between muggles and purebloods been stopped in the past. Right now, the magical community would be even stronger than it is now. You are judging based on what we have become, and are concluding that we are fine. I am judging based on what we could have been, and have concluded that we made errors along the way.
So, how do you believe things might have been if pure-blood supremacy was a more cherished idea in the magical community?
Firstly, the idea is not dead. You seem to refer to it as though it is a lifeless shadow in my imagination. It is very much alive, and it will remain alive for as long as there are those who can think in the magical community. It is not alive because we are bigoted or hate Muggleborns or those from a mixed background. It is alive because we fear that whatever it is that gives magical folk their special gifts might one day cease to exist.
Secondly,
it is a hypothesis, Miss Sterling. We are not mad people like you would like everyone to believe. We think things through and do so thoroughly. If there are squibs born to magical families, for example, there must be a reason. It could be that somewhere, in the distant past, there might have been intermixing between muggles and witches and wizards, which was kept hidden. It is possible the more intermixing there is between those with pure-blood ancestry and those who are muggle-born, the greater the likelihood of magic disappearing altogether in the future. I am not saying I know this to be the case. However, I am not willing to leave it to chance. Magic and our people are too precious for me to simply give up on them.
but if they are squibs because of some distant impurity in their blood, doesn't that mean you're wrong?
How do you mean? Please explain further.
Firstly, it means that there aren't actually pure-blood families left in a true sense of the term, since you are acknowledging there could be unknown incidents of mixing. In other words, you are fighting for a cause that was lost centuries ago. Secondly, the fact that someone who is a squib can have brothers and sisters who aren't squibs casts some doubt on the idea that someone being a pure-blood or not plays a significant role.
I have no problem acknowledging any of that, Miss Sterling. I do not pretend to understand everything in the magical world. There are spells I tried to learn but could not, and objects I wish to own but cannot seem to find. We all have our limitations. I just prefer to think more practically. I see an effect, and I try to take action by weighing one side against the other. I ask, can the wizarding world die out? If the answer is, yes, it might, I say that we should do whatever is in our power to prevent such a tragedy. I ask, is there a chance that it might have something to do with not preserving the purity of our lineages? If the answer is, yes, maybe, I say that it is prudent to ensure we survive. It is not about me, Miss Sterling, it is about the future of wizardkind for generations to come.
Lots of maybes and chances, don't you think?
Oh, it's all maybes and chances and mights and could-bes. Some choose to see the maybes and chances and mights and could-bes and decide that they cannot do anything about anything. There are others who are not so fickle. We confront the chances and the maybes and do so because the cause is too important. We are good people with good aspirations.
I mean, that's a lot of food for thought, I guess. Do you feel like you've got your points across?
I would say so. I must say, Miss Sterling, you are good at what you do. I might even go as far as to say that you have done a good deed for our precious community. If there is anyone out there who is listening and would like to get in touch, do so.
You were very active, especially at the Ministry of Magic back in the days. It appears as though you have taken a step back from rubbing shoulders with the elite. What are you up to nowadays, Mr. Malfoy?
Rubbing shoulders with the elite. Miss Sterling, some would say that they were rubbing shoulders with me, but you are right. I take a less active approach now. I focus more on taking care of the future of my family.
Is that because your standing in the wizarding community diminished as a result of what you have been accused of, even if, let's say, the accusations are unfounded?
No, I did what I could. I am no longer the young man I used to be. I fought for a good cause and hope that the cause continues in some shape or another, and there are plenty who hold similar positions, but feel that they cannot express themselves. If I decide to re-engage in public life more, I am certain that I would not feel out of place at all.
Mr. Malfoy, thank you for joining us today. We have run out of time. I can't say that I agree with most of what you said, but listening to what you had to share was interesting nonetheless.
I like what you are doing here, Miss Sterling. Keep it up, but remember to be good.
Absolutely. Being good is my bread and butter. Well, to the listeners, I hope you enjoyed the second installment of Talking Wizards. It appears as though Mr. Lucius Malfoy has stayed true to his beliefs, and we should always remember that we too should stay true to our beliefs. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, and leave your comments below. Goodbye, until the next time.